Welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time for Chain Breakers, where we meet the people breaking new ground in the blockchain and crypto space. Now today we are joined by Dave Jevans, CEO of CipherTrace, who just came out with a report highlighting the level of money laundering taking place in the crypto space. Dave, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, first, to start off, what are the findings of the report?
The findings of the report are that crypto crime, so basically theft, fraud, and related money laundering activities grew a lot in the first half of this year of 2019. In fact, we think that there's over $4 billion that have been stolen and laundered in the first 6 months. And the second thing is that the sophistication of these attacks against consumers or exchanges has been growing dramatically this year. And then the third thing in the report is really about what's happening in the regulatory environment to try to protect people and protect the world against terrorists and criminals using cryptocurrencies.
Mm-hmm. And you see, you said the trend is that these things are just growing. Do you feel that regulators and companies are taking the correct steps necessary to fight this trend?
I do. I think companies are really motivated to fight this trend because it's their money and their customers' money that is being stolen. There are certainly steps that need to be taken with regulators around protecting consumers from fraudulent cryptocurrency businesses, fraudulent exit scams, Ponzi schemes, that type of thing. Whether it's being done fast enough or whether it's done exactly correctly technically is a matter of debate for the industry, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I found fascinating reading the report was how little of it was actually hacking exchanges and was more how big was ransomware. Because someone who's just following the news, would think, hacked exchange, but it's actually ransomware, which seems to be the bulk of the money. Is that correct?
Yeah, ransomware is a big part of the money, and there's also scams as well. So scams are definitely impacting the space.
Mm-hmm. Right, and
in fact, we saw in the last 3 months over $3 billion of scams. So it's either ransomware or scams, and then there's some amount of hacking exchanges or phishing your credentials.
Mm-hmm. And who's at fault with the scams? Is it a lot of people pointing fingers? Vitalik and the Ethereum team got a lot of hate, let's say, during the ICO scams for kind of enabling it. But how much is that on them, and how much is it, who is it on to stop these things from happening?
Well, I think a little bit is going to be on the regulator side of things and law enforcement to get on top of them quickly and stop them. Some of it's a community effort as well. For example, exchanges working together to try to freeze stolen funds and scam funds. And then some of it's unfortunately on the consumers to get a little bit more educated that there's no crypto business in the world that is going to pay you 10% interest per month. That's a scam.
Mm-hmm. And we know, it was last week that the price of Bitcoin took a massive dive, and some people were attributing it to the offloading of Bitcoin and funds from the Plus token scam, which famously stole up to $3 billion from investors. Now, when it comes to things like that, a lot of people were there were two arguments there. We're saying that exchanges should have taken steps to kind of blacklist those stolen wallets, those stolen funds. What's your take? Because some people are saying, no, listen, we can't. Once exchanges start deciding, what funds and what wallets to accept, then it kind of could go to an iffy place.
I take a different view on that. I think that people want their money back, and if it's possible to get it and it's been proven to be stolen, there should be mechanisms, if it's possible to do it, to get that money frozen. I know there's a philosophical argument around some people saying this is a decentralized economy and we should, once money goes, it goes, and you should have sovereign wealth, and it's just a pure bearer instrument business. I really think when you've got exchanges that have an ability to freeze 10 million, 100 million, 500 million, and it's fraud, don't you have a moral obligation to do it? Isn't that making crypto safer?
Uh-huh. And there's been reports about Bitcoin now, I mean, this happened before, but now new reports of Bitcoin being used by terrorists to fund terror. How much are you seeing of that, and how big of a deal is it?
So Bitcoin, just like every other cryptocurrency and every currency in the world, is used to some extent for nefarious purposes. Our view is that the US dollar, euros, and yen are far bigger as far as terrorist financing goes than cryptocurrencies have been ever. So it does happen. It's growing for sure. We see it out there, but terrorists tend to prefer large suitcases full of cash, at least at this point.
I mean, and if you're someone, at home, especially if you're a Fox News viewer, you wouldn't think that based off, Trump's recent comments about cryptocurrencies, Steve Mnuchin, Mike Pompeo, they've been really giving a different look to crypto.
Well, I think it's very interesting that as soon as Facebook proposed Libra, which could potentially crypto enable 1 billion people and make a meaningful difference in the world as far as adoption, suddenly all of these folks on the Hill become experts about it, even though they haven't really got a deep understanding of it. They've never actually done any crypto transactions. They've never seen the full value and utility of having a global currency that people can control themselves. So I guess it's not a real surprise, but it definitely was motivated a lot by the Libra announcement and just a deep-seated, I think, set of views on the Hill about privacy and Facebook in particular. So let's give these guys a few years to figure out what they're actually talking about. But it's interesting to me that there have been companies working with the US government for at least 5 years to make cryptocurrency safe and secure and to keep terrorists and criminals out of it. And for these folks to just come out and start, making all kinds of tweets and noise about it when they really have no idea what's going on yet.
And do you think this is coming mostly, like you said, from a place of them just not understanding the technology, or like some are kind of proposing that it's Trump just helping out his banking crony friends?
I'm sure there's some of that as well. I mean, look, cryptocurrency at a huge scale will absolutely threaten a lot of financial institutions' business models, certainly on the payment side of things. There's plenty of money still to be had by banks in providing loans and other kinds of financial instruments. I think it's just Trump trying to say something, and I really honestly think it's more politically motivated by the investigations and testimony of Mark Zuckerberg in the last few months on the Hill, and that there's a joke going around that one thing has unified both Republicans and Democrats, and that's their dislike of Facebook and distrust of it. So I think it's a lot political rather than Trump trying to prop up the banks at this point.
Right, and someone coming.
But anything could happen with that guy.
Yeah, right, and so coming from the point of view of security, crypto security, and fighting against these scams and hacks, do you find that Libra, although maybe bad PR for crypto, but do you feel that Libra getting into the field would up the security and would up, and would lower a lot of these frauds and hacks that we're seeing?
I think it's got the potential to do that. The devil's in the details. You're talking about a system that's going to be attacked in every single possible way on very large scale, just like any large financial network will be attacked, just like big e-commerce companies are being attacked all the time now. At the end of the day, though, if you want to prevent terrorists, if you want to keep bad guys off the system, if you want to identify criminals, wouldn't you want something like Facebook to be a payment vehicle or to have an on-ramp to it? Because they know more about identity than almost anyone. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's great for crypto. I think it's great for people all around the world. I think it's a fantastic idea for the unbanked to get access to global payments. Let's see how it goes.
And so, like you said, your report spoke about many different issues facing the cryptosphere. Which is the problem that's the easiest to solve, and which is the problem that's the hardest to solve for the cryptosphere, and what can be done?
Well, they're all hard. I'd say the easiest ones are educating people about not giving up their usernames and passwords, not getting phished, the proper use of hardware wallets if that's how they want to do it, using real exchanges that have been around for a while, that they've actually looked at so that they're less susceptible to getting scammed or having their stuff stolen. I think the harder ones are going to be some of the regulatory compliance issues that are being proposed by regulators who are trying to take a view that is maybe how banks used to do things and trying to layer that onto crypto and not really understanding the difficulties of it, how it could break models and cause a lot of cost in the system. I think those are difficult ones because they're going to be enforced, and they are coming from a very old mindset of how we built the payment systems in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. And going forwards, what are the crime trends that you predict really being the next big thing for crypto crime?
Well, I think first one is going to be regulatory compliance and increased security around it. There's going to be identity issues related to it. So I think that's another one we're going to see, is how identity blends into crypto in a much more pervasive way, for good or for ill, I suppose. We're going to continue to see more sophisticated attacks and hacks. So those are against exchanges. Those are going to be against crypto businesses, large investors. Those are attacks like, for example, taking over your cell phone in addition to your username and password, or hacking an exchange at the same time as they're hacking a user account. And I think we're also going to see the institutionalization of crypto. The big players, everybody keeps saying it, but it's true. The big players are moving in to the space. Everyone sees the opportunities. We've had a crypto winter. We've survived it. It's come through very strong. That's a huge trend that we will see over the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And there are some who are claiming that a lot of people just try to create FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. What is your counter argument to that? When your company puts out reports, and it is your job, but your company does put out reports that kind of paint a grim picture of the cryptosphere.
Well, I think you also have to put it into perspective versus the fiat world. So if we look at money laundering in regular banking, Danske Bank was guilty of laundering over $200 billion just through one bank. So if we take a look at it in the global perspective, crypto has actually got a lot of safety behind it. It's got a lot of great qualities behind it. And I also wouldn't call this FUD, because this is not uncertainty. It's not fear. It's actual facts. And we have to face the facts that the hacks happen, and we got to get more secure about it. And we have to face the fact that there are still scammers out there that are willing to take advantage of gullible people who, for one reason or another, are throwing money into crypto and getting ripped off. But that is the same for any type of business. There's always scams out there. They're not just crypto related.
Mm-hmm. And how effective right now is law enforcement in terms of tracking these stolen funds? The city of Baltimore, famously, this is happening to a lot of municipalities now, where they're being held for ransomware. Some are paying, some aren't. But how good is law enforcement right now in tracking down these hackers and tracing the funds that are paid?
Well, they're certainly better than they were 2 or 3 years ago, I'll say that. There have been some meaningful arrests. There's been some meaningful seizures of funds that have been stolen, and some of it's been returned to people. There's more coming as law enforcement's gotten more effective. It's going to be a game, and continues to be a game of cat and mouse. So the smarter that law enforcement gets, the better tools they have from a variety of companies out there to track cryptocurrencies, the smarter the criminals will be in trying to evade that. But I think also it's a collaboration game. And I've seen a lot of improvement over the last year or two where law enforcement agencies from around the world are collaborating, because the bad guys today, when they steal 10 million or 50 million or 500 million or 2 billion, they've got to move it around the world. And that's what they're doing. It goes to many different countries at the same time in small little pieces. So the only way to find them is to work together. And that collaboration is really starting to happen.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of bad players out there. Dave, to wrap this all up, let the viewers at home know, what's the number one thing they could do to keep themselves safe?
The first thing is don't invest in scams that try to tell you they're going to give you 10% a week or 10% a month. I'd say the second one is really around personal security. Use a hardware wallet if you want to make sure that your funds are safe, and also really protect your passwords and private keys. So watch out, because the phishers are out there trying to get access to your funds.
All right, well, you heard it here, guys. Not your keys, not your crypto. and make sure there is no free money that grows on trees. So thank you, Dave, so much for joining us. And for all your viewers at BLOCKTV.com, stay tuned. I'm Neon Hockout.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.